guys, this is Christy and David. In this video I am finally sharing with you his birth story, or my labor and delivery story. This is something I meant to do a long time ago, and then first time mom, I just forgot. So thankfully someone reminded me recently. They commented, "Oh, are you still gonna do it?" And I was like, all right, yes I am. So I am happy that I made notes from 4 months ago, everything that happened, so otherwise I probably would not remember all of the details now. If you followed my pregnancy videos, I would have mentioned a little bit about my induction on my 39-week pregnancy update. That was actually the day I went into the hospital, and then I got sent home again, but yeah, I'll just go over a little bit now. In the end of my pregnancy, around like week 34, I think, I started having high blood pressure. I did lots of tests, lots of non-stress tests, as well as blood work, and I did not have preeclampsia, but that's what they were worried about. So lots, like every other week I had more tests, but that was all good. However, they were worried because my blood pressure was pretty high, so they put me on the induction list. So I was put on a Thursday, like at the end of June, and then I finally got the phone call on Sunday to come in. They said, just, come in at 2:30. It was like 12, I think, that they called. And then that was that. I had an idea because my doctor had said we probably will have you induced, but yeah, I was like 39.5 weeks, so close to being on term. So on Sunday when I went in, I was only 1 centimeter dilated, which is not very far. So they put me on a medication called Cervidil. So that is a hormone prostaglandin, and from my understanding, it's just supposed to help like start things moving, I guess, and just begin to dilate you. So they inserted it. It looks like a little tampon type thing, and then they sent me home. I think they monitored me for like a little bit right after, and then I was feeling fine, so they sent me home. So they said to come back if you start having contractions a lot, or your water breaks, or if it falls out, or if none of those happen, come back in 24 hours. So that 24 hours, I had the worst cramps. Now, looking at it, maybe they were already a little bit of contractions. I don't think so, though. They were just like, I've never had cramps that bad. I don't usually get a lot of period cramps, and I guess that's what they felt like, but it was just nonstop all day, all night, and I could barely sleep. It was just, it was the worst. I was like lying in bed saying like, this is so uncomfortable. But nothing happened aside from the cramps. My water didn't break, nothing. So we went back the next day. I think I called my doctor and was like, nothing happened. And she said, okay, I'll come back again. So I went back in on Monday, June 29th, and they took it out, and then by that point I was actually 3 centimeters dilated, which was good. I think if I would have only been 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters again, they would have popped it in again, and had we go home again, or then there's another one, like a Cook catheter that they can put in to help you get dilated. But thankfully 3 centimeters, they were happy with the progress at least. So they said, that's good, and we're gonna admit you. You're gonna have your baby. So this was Monday at around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we waited quite a while. At that point, there was just a lot of labor and deliveries, and we needed a nurse. So yeah, we just waited, and then finally at around 7 o'clock that night, so we've been waiting, yeah, for quite a few hours, we had a nurse assigned to me, and again, I was totally fine. Once they removed it, I did not have any cramping. I felt back to normal again. And I was only 3 centimeters dilated. So yeah, I was fine with just chilling. I had a bed. Dan spent time with me. We were, I think that was still early on, so I was just on my phone. We didn't get out the Netflix yet. But yeah, we were just, chilling. So then at 7 p.m. they started me on oxytocin, and that is what starts your contractions. I didn't feel anything really, but I was hooked up to a non-stress test the whole time where they're monitoring it, and they actually said that I was having some minor contractions. I honestly just did not feel those. So we just kind of went on. I waited. I think Dan went home to feed the dogs, because not much was happening. Again, I still didn't feel anything. Then at around like 11 o'clock at night, they said, okay, we're seeing about 5 contractions within a 10-minute time. Again, I did not feel anything. So good that they had that non-stress test there, because yeah, I didn't notice anything. So they said, okay, 5 within a 10-minute time, that is adequate. So then the doctor came and broke my water. So I did not, like, it didn't break naturally, so she came and the amount of liquid that I leaked, or fluid that I leaked, I am so glad that it didn't happen like at home or in the car or something. That's a lot. So anyways, it happened nicely in the bed with the nurse like changing the pads from underneath me always. So that was really good. One thing that they did notice when they broke my water was that there was meconium in my amniotic fluid. So that is basically like the baby poop, but if it's in your amniotic fluid, then they said there's the potential risk that it's been hanging around there and then has ingested it. So they said not to worry, we're just gonna have, when you deliver, we're gonna have a pediatrician in the room. So as soon as he comes out, if he isn't breathing or he's having trouble breathing, before we give him to you, the pediatrician is just going to take him right on that table over there and do what they need to do. And I was like, yes, please. Did you just throw up? No. So that was good to know. I mean, I was a little worried at that time, but I was like, okay, I felt in good hands. So I'm like, I'm fine with that. So then after they broke my water, within like half an hour, I started to feel those contractions. And all along, like throughout my pregnancy, I didn't have like a birth plan, but I knew I wanted an epidural. Just a personal choice for me. I don't do pain that well. I admire moms who are able to have a completely natural birth. I am not one of them. And even while I was in that room throughout, I could hear moms screaming in the walls, like in the rooms adjacent to me, like doing the big or one's like, I can't do this, and like screaming top of her lungs. And I asked my nurse, I'm like, since I'm having an epidural, that's not going to be me, right? And she said, no, that should not be. As long as the epidural goes well, you shouldn't feel it. I was like, oh thank goodness, because that, like, those are some power moms that can deal with that pain without an epidural. So yeah, I knew I was going to have an epidural. I knew that you have to wait for the anesthesiologist, and sometimes that can take time because I think there's usually only like one in the maternity ward. So if she was doing it to someone else, I'd have to wait. So when I started feeling them, I said, yeah, I think I'd like to have my epidural now. I went to the washroom, and because once you have it in, you can't really do anything. And then already while I was in the washroom, they're like, okay, yep, the anesthesiologist is here. And I was like, already? Like, that was super fast. So I got the epidural. It was painful. They have you like sit at the, like, on the edge of your bed, and they have a pillow underneath you, and you kind of lean forward because they have to put a needle like in your spinal area. That did hurt, and at first, just out of not instinct, but out of reflex, I went like that, and of course she's like, you cannot move, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, like I did not mean to move. But then she got it in, taped it all up, and then had me lie down again. It took about 20 minutes for it to start working, and I started feeling, like, painfully feeling contractions. And that's not even like what it would be like. So like that's just the very beginning of it, what people usually feel at home. So yeah, I was like, this, I could not focus on anything else. I was like, this is terrible. I'm waiting for my epidural to kick in. So again, I'm very glad that I made that choice to have an epidural, because I could not handle it, I don't think. Even just those 20 minutes of feeling the beginning of contractions, that was so bad. So I was waiting, and then it started to kick in, and it was working really well. I didn't feel anything. And the nurse, she would have like ice, and she'd touch places like on your stomach and things, and she's like, can you feel that? And no. And then for me, actually, I think the epidural was working a little too well. She'd put like ice up on my chest and was like, can you feel that? And you should be able to feel that, because you don't need to have no feeling up top, and I could not feel it. So I think she adjusted it to make it not as strong, because it was working really well. So then we just kind of continued, waited till I was having like contractions more regularly. At this point, I couldn't feel anything, so yeah, we were looking at the monitor. So I was very comfortable. I slept. Then at 3 a.m. I remember I was woken up because my contractions actually got further apart according to the monitor, which shouldn't happen. Like, you should be progressing forward. They should be getting stronger and closer together. So mine were getting farther apart, so pregnancy was slowing down. So then they upped the oxytocin to, I think, the maximum amount for like delivery. And yeah, it was around 3 a.m. and then I think I went back to sleep again. And then at 5 a.m. they checked and I was 10 centimeters dilated. So they were like, all right, wake up, we're gonna do this. So they said, yeah, we're gonna start pushing. Dan was there already. He spent the night. I think Dan's mom as well as my friend, they were taking turns looking after the dog, so we didn't have to worry about them for the most part. So yeah, then I again didn't feel anything. I honestly, at the beginning, I still couldn't tell when I was having a contraction. I would have to rely on the nurse to look at my, like, the monitor and tell me you're having a contraction, so start pushing. So that happened a little bit, and then honestly, I think I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling because my epidural was working so well. So eventually I made the connection, for me at least, when it feels that you kind of have to poop, but you're trying to hold it in, and that's what a contraction feels like when you're on an epidural for me. So then when I started having that, I was like, I think I'm having a contraction, and then they like looked at them on and they're like, yes you are, push. Okay, so I was like, oh okay. So but then I figured out what a contraction felt like, and so I was doing my pushing, and one of my legs was super sleepy. I couldn't actually, like, because I was kind of bending my knees for every contraction and pushing. One, I could not control it, so Dan had to hold it up for me. The other one I could, but yeah, one I just, like, it would just slide right out. So then after 45 minutes of doing this, again, they were monitoring everything. It showed that, well, with babies, their heart rate goes down a little bit when you have a contraction, but then as soon as the contraction goes away, it goes back up again. So they said with him, it was going down when I had a contraction, but it wasn't going up as it should when the contraction passed. So they said he needs to come out now. So they said, we're gonna get the obstetrician and he's gonna talk about your options. And at this point I was like, oh my God. And so I asked my nurse, I'm like, do you think I have to get a C-section? Like, after all this, being induced, all this, is it gonna come down to that? And she said, you know, he'll discuss it with you, but she's like, you know, I don't think so, but I think there's other options before we get to that. But again, you know, he's the doctor, so he'll talk it over with you. So he came in, he was very nice. He was explaining everything that actually they were going to do, if I was okay with it, a vacuum assisted delivery, which, yeah, totally fine. They said basically they have, when they can see the head, they have a little vacuum like this, and it suctions on the back of the head, and then while I am pushing and having contraction, it just helps from the outside to pull them out while I'm doing my pushing from the inside. So I said yes, of course, like, if that's what's best. So then at 6:05 a.m. He was delivered. So yeah, with the vacuum assisted, he did end up having a little bit of like a bruise the back of his head for 4 days, I think, but he was totally fine. His head wasn't misshapen or anything, and his hair was fine. And yeah, 6:05, he was born. And he cried right away, so there was no worry about having the meconium stuck in his lungs, and so Dan and I were so relieved, and it was all like a blur, but they gave him to me like right away, and I had him on my chest for skin to skin time, and Dan got to cut the umbilical cord, which he was pretty excited about. While I was holding him skin to skin, they're like, Mom, do you want to see your placenta? And I was like, no. But then they asked if Dan wanted to, and he looked at it. He said it was weird, like mesh-like. And then I was like, darn, I should have looked. But at the time, I was so enjoying hugging him. I was like, ew, why would I want to see the placenta? So I did not. I just hugged you. Oh well, I don't think I missed that much. So recovery was going well. I still didn't have feeling in the one leg, so I could stand on one leg, and then they would move me into mother and babe unit from like the delivery unit. And yeah, even like being put into the wheelchair, they had to almost like lift me up because I could not use one of my legs. It was a weird feeling. So then they said, you know, as you're healing up, your uterus contracts, so you'll notice some bleeding. But if you have any like bleeding bigger than a plum size, let us know. But aside from that, didn't think much of it. So I was recovering. I'm doing really well. Actually, if you watched my What I Ate Wednesday video, that was filmed on that day, so things were going well. Then in the room you have like your nurse call button, and then on the wall there's like the emergency call button. I was recovering well, and then it was about, I'd say about 6 hours later, so it was afternoon, and then I was in the washroom and I noticed that I did have a clot that was about the size of a plum, I don't know, and so I pushed, there was only one button in the washroom, and it was the urgent button. So I was like, well, it's not urgent, but I was told to let them know if I have like past something, a clot bigger than a plum. And I was like, I'm in the washroom, I don't want to go all the way over to the bed. I was in a room during COVID time, you are all in private rooms, so that was nice, even though I didn't pay for one. Because, well, you don't pay to deliver at the hospital, but if you want like upgrades, like a private room, you have to. However, during COVID, everyone got to have their private room, as long as there was space, which there was. So anyways, I was like, I was on the far bed too, so I'm like, So anyways, I pressed the urgent button. 3 nurses came running in, and I felt really bad, because it wasn't an emergency. They're like, what, where are you? Like, and then I showed them, and then they were like, oh, that's, you know, that's not an emergency, you should not press. And I got quite a lecture that I should not press the emergency button when it's not an emergency. And I was like, well, I was in the washroom, this was the only button in the washroom. Anyways, and I felt really bad. So then I think Dan was away getting food or something. So then half an hour later, I was back in bed relaxing, and I was with Dan, and then all of a sudden I like feel me passing a whole bunch of blood, like a lot of blood, and I was like on my way to the bathroom then, and blood's just like pouring out of me, and Dan's like, okay, I'm gonna push the emergency button. I'm like, no, you can't push the emergency button, they're gonna get mad at me. So he pushed the regular button because I would not let him push the emergency button, as I like was teetering my way to the toilet or to the washroom. And then the nurse was nearby, and so she actually did come like right away as I was walking to the bathroom, and she sees like the blood, and she tells me to get back to the bed. She like opens the door, calls 3 more nurses to come in, and then while they're all crowding in bed, then she pushes the emergency button to have, I think there were like 6 nurses and then the doctor that were in my room. So I found out that I was having a postpartum hemorrhage. Now, looking back at it later, it could have been worse, but it was, I mean, I didn't find it scary because I didn't really know what was going on, but it, like, Dan was really scared. He said there was so much blood, and yeah, they had so many nurses coming in. They were hooking me up to IVs on both of my wrists, and then there was like one person recording all the drugs that were being administered, someone else like getting all of them, and yeah, there were like 6 or 7 nurses and a doctor that were all helping me. And then they told Dan to take David out of the room and go to, there's like a dad waiting area or something, lounge area, and he's like, no, I'm fine. And they're like, no, you have to go to that room. And so they kind of made him leave. And yeah, after Dan said he was so scared for me, and like he said it was worse that he was not allowed to be with me, like that he was pushed away, that like he could not be there. And I mean, it was an intense circumstance, like they were trying to get me on all this stuff, so the doctor and the nurses kept pushing on my abdomen trying to get more blood out, and like I could feel I was just passing large clots of blood. So then yeah, one IV actually I still had in my arm, but it was like blocked, so they had to rip that out to put a new IV in, and then they put a new IV in the other hand. In one arm I had oxytocin, I'm not sure what was going in the other arm, and then they also put me on the oxygen that goes under the nose, as well as, yeah, they just like, after a while my stomach hurt so much, not from like the pregnancy, but just from the doctors like pushing down so hard trying to like expel more clots and blood. And then they also gave me misoprostol. One was injected in the IV, and then the other one was actually was rectally, and then also got it orally. So just quickly, and that I think helps empty the uterus. So yeah, just kind of empty. And then every 10 minutes, the nurse would come in, nurse or doctor would come in and push on my stomach and kind of push to empty my uterus from clots and blood. And after about 30 minutes of being stable, still hooked up to all of like the tubes, they let Dan come back in with David. So he was happy to see me that I was okay. And then they put a urinary catheter in, so I didn't have to get up at all, which was actually really nice. I was like, didn't even know I'm peeing, and I'm peeing. And then, I mean, on each arm I had IVs in, so it would be very tricky to have to get up to go to the washroom. And they kept me on the IVs for 24 hours. So then the next day they checked David's blood work just to do his routine newborn blood screen, and they checked mine to look at my iron levels. And they were low, but they were not dangerously low. So again, reading up on postpartum hemorrhaging after, like if it was really, really bad, I would have had to have like an infusion. So it wasn't that bad, but definitely it was scary at the time. Well, at the very beginning, I wasn't really scared. It was only then when tons of nurses came and coming in, and then like I could tell that this was not good. Like this was not supposed to happen. So David, actually, his blood work was showing good, but he was mildly jaundiced. So it was mild enough that he didn't have to have light therapy. When we did get discharged, we had to go the next day and then the following day to our like local nurse clinic, where they did a light test to test his jaundice levels, and then it went away on its own. But yeah, at the beginning he had that, and when they're young they get blood from their heel, and he clots really well, so they had to like prick him like 3 times and like squeeze him to try to get blood. Oh, he did not like that at all. But yeah, we stayed until Thursday around noon. They were saying, yeah, we should stay until Thursday because I gave birth on a Tuesday. And they said I could leave like any time on Thursday morning or after Thursday morning once they got my blood work again back and his blood work. However, I was like, can I stay to have lunch? Because they actually had really good food there. So we stayed till after lunch just so I could have lunch there, and didn't have to worry about it, you know, making lunch and getting lunch when I get home. So that was his birth story. He was born, yes, at 6:05 on Tuesday, June 30th, and he weighed 6 pounds, 15 ounces. So he was a little guy. But yeah, now looking back, I'm so happy. Well, definitely happy I had an epidural. I actually really liked that I was induced. Like, it took the guessing out of it. I mean, there was a little bit, oh dear. There was a little bit of not knowing, like, is it today or tomorrow? But honestly, I'm glad my water didn't break at home and that we had to clean up that mess, because that would have been crazy. So yeah, I mean, you can't choose to be induced, but maybe next time I would if I have another kid, because of my, well, I don't know. But anyways, I was very happy with that. As far as planning can go, I was very happy with that. And yeah, I am amazed at all the moms that can give birth without an epidural. You guys are so strong. But epidural worked really well for me. I had no complications. And everything just, yeah, went so well. So thank you guys so much for watching this super long video on little birth video for David. He says, I'm hungry now, Mom. You've been chatting for half an hour. Yes. So thanks for watching this video, and sorry it is, what, like 4.5 months late? Yes, I know. Everyone's mad it's 4.5 months late. See you guys later. Bye.